My name is Lúcia Mendes. I'm 60 years old, and if you're reading this, maybe you're also carrying a weight you think no one sees. I want you to know I see you, because I've been there, knees on the floor, heart in pieces, wondering how to take the next breath. It was a Tuesday in August when my world ended. My husband, Roberto, came home from work complaining of chest pain. "It's just tiredness," he said, kissing my forehead like he always did. He sat at the kitchen table, smiled at our youngest, Jewel, who was drawing dinosaurs on scrap paper, and then collapsed, just like that. No warning, no goodbye dot. He was 42. I was 32. And suddenly, I was alone with 3 children under 10. Roberto worked in construction cash jobs, no benefits, no pension. The funeral cost more than I had in the bank. Relatives offered hugs, but not help. "You're strong, Lúcia," they said, as if strength could pay the rent or buy milk. The first month was a blur of panic. I sold our TV, his tools, even my wedding ring. Still, the landlord knocked. The kids asked for their father in their sleep. I held them tight and whispered, "He's watching over us," while inside, I screamed into silence. I'd never worked outside the home. Roberto believed a woman's place was with the children. But now, my place was wherever someone would pay me. I got my first job cleaning offices downtown 6 in the morning until noon. The pay was terrible, but it was something. Then I found night work washing dishes at a diner. The owner, Donna Marta, saw my hand shaking one evening and said, "You look like you haven't eaten." I lied and said I had. She gave me a plate of rice and beans anyway. I cried in the alley behind the kitchen. At home, I learned to stretch one egg into 3 meals. To say I'm full with an empty stomach. To smile when my children asked why we couldn't go to the park anymore. Because the bus fare meant no bread that week. But even in the darkest nights, I made a promise to myself. They will never know what it feels like to be abandoned. Not by me. Never by me. I didn't know it then. But that promise would carry us through years of hunger, cold, and loneliness. Because love doesn't feed you, but it gives you the strength to find food. And I would move mountains, if I had to, for my children. After Roberto died, time didn't feel like days, it felt like survival. Every morning, I woke before sunrise, kissed my children's foreheads, and walked 2 miles to the office building where I cleaned bathrooms, wiped windows, and scrubbed floors on my knees. My hands cracked and bled, but I wrapped them in old rags and kept going. At noon, I'd rush home to make sure the kids had eaten lunch, usually rice with a fried egg, if I was lucky. Then I'd walk them to school, even though I was exhausted. I wanted them to feel safe, seen, normal. After school, I'd leave them with a neighbor, Donacita. God bless her, and head to the diner for my night shift. There were nights I fell asleep standing up at the sink. Nights I counted coins under the streetlight, wondering if I could afford soap or bread. Nights I sat on the floor of our tiny kitchen, too tired to cry, just staring at the ceiling, whispering, "Just one more day, Lúcia, just one more." I never told the kids how bad it was. When Anna asked why we didn't have birthday parties anymore, I made a cake from cornmeal and sweetened condensed milk. We sang with candles made from melted crayons. She hugged me and said, "Best birthday ever, May." My heart broke and healed in the same second. Food was the hardest part. I learned tricks. Soak stale bread in milk to make it soft again. Use onion skins to add flavor to thin broth. Stretch one chicken into 3 meals by boiling the bones twice. But sometimes there was nothing. On those nights, I'd drink strong coffee and say I wasn't hungry. And I'd watch my children eat, memorizing the way their eyes lit up even over plain rice. I missed Roberto every second, not just for his love, but for his hands, his strong, calloused hands that could fix anything. Now, when the faucet leaked or the light bulb blew, I had to figure it out myself. I cried the first time I changed a tire, kneeling in the rain, my dress soaked, my fingers numb. But I did it because no one else would. The worst moment came when Joe got sick with a high fever. I didn't have money for the clinic. I walked to the pharmacy, begged for medicine, and promised to pay next week. The pharmacist looked at me like I was trash. I held my head high and walked out with the pills because shame wouldn't heal my son. That night, as I held Jewel's burning forehead, I made a silent vow, no matter what. They will never feel this kind of fear, even if it meant I went without food, without rest, without hope I would be their hope. And so I kept walking, one step, one meal, one night at a time. Years passed, the kids grew taller, my back grew stiffer, but something inside me began to shift, not because life got easier, but because I started noticing the small wins. Anna started bringing home report cards with all A's. "You're so smart, May," she'd say. not knowing I'd never finished high school. Pedro began fixing broken toys for the neighborhood kids, just like his father used to do. And Jewel, he'd read library books out loud to me at night, his voice steady and proud. I started saving coins in a coffee can, just a few at a time. One day, I had enough to buy new shoes for Anna's school play. She wore them like they were made of gold. That night, I cried not from sadness, but from quiet joy. But loneliness was a different kind of hunger. At 40, I still looked young, people said. A few men showed interest. One even asked me to marry him. But I couldn't imagine bringing a stranger into our fragile world. What if he wasn't kind? What if he left? My children had lost enough. So I stayed alone. I talked to Roberto in my prayers. I danced alone in the kitchen to old samba songs. I learned to enjoy silence, but it never stopped aching. Then, something unexpected happened. Dona Marta, the diner owner, offered me a raise. "You've got the soul of a warrior," she said. With that extra money, I enrolled in night classes, adult education, just basic reading and math. I wanted to help with homework. I wanted to understand the world my children were entering. It was hard. I was the oldest student by 20 years, but every time I spelled a word right or solved an equation, I felt like I was stitching my dignity back together. One evening, Pedro saw me studying and said, "May, you're the bravest person I know." I hugged him so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Those words became my fuel. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming someone my children could be proud of, not just as a mother, but as a woman, and that was worth every silent tear I'd ever cried.